Say a word about what does, in fact, you could call it
Yeah.
decent patriarchy look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have examples. Someone like George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life is a great example of this. Someone who has to forego things that he may want in his life, but because he's providing and caring for others, not just his family, but in the case of It's a Wonderful Life, it's really the whole community that you see the way in which he's cultivating these relationships and taking care of people such that they can have a much better life than what it looks like under, his nemesis. So I think, the big thing too is also to recognize the egalitarian nature of feminism, and the hierarchy and the patriarchy are kind of one and the same. They're the structure by which men organize themselves. And one of the things that's really beautiful about it is that if you look at something like the military, men don't exclude people. They find a place for them in the hierarchy, and this is what women don't do. We want everybody to be equal, and if you're too above us, we're going to pull you down, and if you're beneath us, we get rid of you. This is obviously in a vicious form, of course. Women have incredible virtues, but those are not really used and demonstrated much today. But so the point being that there's something about the beauty of recognizing the gifts that everybody has, but it's a structure through which everybody kind of knows their place. They have a role in it. And we have to recognize that that's really what Mary Wollstonecraft and the Enlightenment thinkers like her husband, William Godwin, and then, coming down through all of the godless egalitarians, was to get rid of all of that. And so what you're missing out then is certainly the place for everyone, the roles and the capacity that men have to see very easily the gifts that people have. And this is what a good father does also. There's a reason why matriarchies always end up in a kind of ghettoization. And it's because women want to nurture and hold their children close to them. But we don't always see it's the way in which we can help our children best by either pushing them out of the nest or telling them, to protect certain gifts that they have, like sexuality of young women. If a lot of the women in the culture today who don't have fathers had role models that said, you need to stop abusing your sexuality and being promiscuous as young women, we live in a very different culture. And I think this is what a good father does, is help children understand what needs to be protected and then what needs to be let out into the world in different stages and use their gifts. So it's almost like I've heard the image of like a hydraulic dam, that the father is the one who sort of holds things in and then releases them when they need to, children need to go out into the world. So I think there's a lot of incredible ways to look at it. We've been beating up on the patriarchy for so long. Few would be able to really say what it is, other than kind of this machismo, but that's really not what it is. That's really a characterization or a mischaracterization of it that has been perpetuated for so many decades and even centuries that it's hard to really know the good of it until it's gone, and then we really see what's missing when it comes to things like police and military and the order that it brings to our lives.
I take you, Carrie, to be saying two things, and maybe we can close out with this question.
Mhm.
I think one thing you're saying is that leadership has a very strong component of servant leadership,
Absolutely.
which is a very Christian idea, isn't it?
Mhm.
That the job of the leader is just not to drag everybody behind him, but rather to serve the people that he is put in charge of. And I think that's a very important point.
Mhm.
But the other point you're making, which I think is a little more controversial, and that is you're saying that the problem is not that the first wave of feminism was good and then the
Mhm.
second wave of feminism went off the tracks. I think you're
Mhm.
saying that feminism from the very beginning, and this
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
Susan B. Anthony and Mary Wollstonecraft, they began with an attack on the idea of subordination or
Mm.
hierarchy or patriarchy, and thus early
Mhm.
feminism, or some people call it first wave feminism, sowed the seeds of the chaos of second wave feminism. Is that
Mhm.
right?
No, that's absolutely right. And I think it goes much deeper than just kind of philosophical ideas. There are actually theological ideas involved. And one of them, which Mary Wollstonecraft was very involved in, was this idea of Unitarianism. That she started as an Anglican, then went to becoming a dissenter, and then became a Unitarian. Like a lot of the men around her, either they were Unitarians or atheists. Dr. Richard Price, who's considered the first leftist thinker, Thomas Paine, William Godwin, Joseph Johnson, all of these different men were Unitarians. And so she took on this idea, because Unitarians don't believe in the divinity of Christ. They just believe in a kind of an abstract God that you get to through reason. And Wollstonecraft believed that if you had any man as a mediator between you and God, that was thwarting the potential of a woman. So even Jesus is actually going to act as a way to block the potential of a woman. And it's only through a woman's reason that she's going to be able to reach God. Well, this idea was really perpetuated throughout the 1800s, and it was something that was believed in very much by the first wave women like Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony, who did eventually say she was an atheist. So these theological ideas are at play, and certainly very much at the beginning of the movement, and created this, cornerstone of idea for what would become the second wave.
When I first came to America around 1980, I had $500 in my pocket. That's it. Now, if I'd been really frugal and not spent a penny of that money, what do you think it would be worth now? What could it actually buy now compared to what it could buy in 1980? Well, the answer, less than $130. Now, why is that? Because the U.S. government, through the Fed, is constantly printing money and devaluing your money. When the government prints money, there's more money chasing the same amount of goods and services. So guess what? Money goes down in value. Money buys less. The Fed has been at it since 1913. That's why a dollar today can buy just what a few cents could buy in 1913. And the government continues to print oceans of money. It really never stops. Now, an ounce of gold reached a high of $850 in 1980. It's worth now around $3,900 an ounce. So historically, over time, we see gold has gone up and up in value. Dollars have gone down and down. And what about in the last 12 months? Gold is up over 40%. I believe now is the time to find out how you can diversify your savings with gold and silver. And this is why I've partnered with Goldco. They offer the best customer service for precious metals ownership. They are also the only gold dealer that offers a first-time gold buyer rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified purchases. There's no better offer out there, so take advantage. To learn more about how to safeguard your savings from the dollar's decline, go to dineshgold.com. Very simple, easy to remember, dineshgold.com.